The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. And now for an amazing story.
We get to have an amazing time talking about the big... Oh, come on. I think we can do better than that. I think you guys have marshmallows in your mouth. Let's try that again. The big... That's right. This month, our big idea is creation. Everybody say creation. God made the world and everything in it. And I have to admit, when I think about creation, when I look at the world around me, it is astounding. I have to tell you that I kind of had aspirations when I was a kid to create stuff. And so I kind of made some pointless inventions. When I was in the 5th grade, we had a project for my school where we had to come up with an invention and make a commercial for it. And I invented a robot that cleans your room. Really, it was just a monster truck, like remote control with a vacuum attached to the end of it. I wish I would have patented it because I could have owned the Roomba, but I got to make it. But at the end of the day, it was kind of a pointless invention. It didn't actually work. But I got to thinking, and there are some pretty silly things that people try to solve, that they make something without actually having a problem. For example, every time you use a spoon and you try to eat a bite of soup, and everybody blows on it first, what if you didn't have to do that? You just had a fan that would cool it off for you. Would you guys use that? I'd be too afraid I'd smack myself in the face with it. Or maybe you find yourself walking out in the rain with your brand new back-to-school shoes, and you don't want them to get wet, so what do? You put umbrellas on them, right? Shoe umbrellas. This one, I think this may have actually been a picture of me, and they swapped out my face, but maybe you don't like mowing your yard, but you do like riding your bike. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the motorcycle, okay? That is like the official uniform of dads mowing the lawn. You got to have the white New Balance and the black socks. But when you look at those inventions, those creations are pointless. Like, what problem are they actually solving? Well, here's the thing that I want you guys to realize, is that when God created the world, He didn't just make a pointless invention. He gave a purpose to His creation. Last week, Miss Michaela revealed to you these beautiful artworks that showed us what God has made on days 1 through 3. On the very first day, God said, "Let there be light." And in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And so we're going to get started as we review all of these. But God set time into motion when He created the light and He created the dark. And He separated them and made the light day and the dark night. And then on the second day, God gathered up all of the water into one spot. And He made a huge vault that we call the sky. God separated the water from the sky. And He created it, and He said that it was good. And then on the third day, God said to let the water be gathered up so that dry ground would appear, and that's what He made. So dry land came up, and then He told the land to produce every kind of living thing. He told it to produce to produce every kind of vegetation. So there were trees and flowers, and each one of them would produce its own kind, including cucumbers. We saw some of those last week. But today, we're going to see how God started to bring a purpose to His creation. He's really just set the foundation for what He was going to do on the next 3 days. So let's get started, okay? On day 4, God said, "Let lights appear in the sky to separate the day from the night. Let them be signs to mark the seasons, days, and years. Let these lights in the sky shine down on the earth." And that's what happened. God made 2 great lights, the larger one to govern the day and the smaller one to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set these lights in the sky to light the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate the light from darkness. So if you could use your imagination, if you could take a close-up, because remember, God created light and dark on the first day, but now God said, let's put the sun in the sky. And there it is, burning and bright and brilliant. It's fascinating to think that God created light before he created the sun. But then God created another light to rule over the night, and that was the moon. Now, the interesting thing is that the moon is different from the sun. It doesn't give off light. It's not its own light. It only reflects the light of the sun. But then God breathed into the universe every single star. They were vast, too many to count, just as that video said just before. Now, God had created all these things. First, he created light and dark, but now he created the very things that gave it purpose. The stars and the sun and the moon, they mark the days and the seasons. They light the earth for us. You see, God gave them a purpose, and God saw that it was good. And evening passed, and morning came, and that had marked the fourth day. Now, what God did next is, remember, on the second day, God created the sky and God created the water. But on day 5, God began to fill the sky and to fill the water. Then God said, let waters swarm with fish and other life. Let the skies be filled with birds of every kind. So God created great sea creatures and every living thing that scurries and swarms in the water, every sort of bird, each producing offspring of the same kind. And God saw that it was good, and then God blessed him, saying, be fruitful and multiply. Let the fish fill the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth. He gave them a purpose. And so, remember, God created the sky and he created the water, but now he began to fill them. He created every kind of sea creature that you could imagine, from a humble fish to a great sea eel that's over 20 feet long. Could you imagine for the first time seeing a whale break the surface of the water and splash? God created dolphins that are incredibly intelligent. God began to fill the ocean. But then God filled the sky with every kind of bird, from the tiniest and fastest flying hummingbird to the giant hawk and eagle. God created them with a purpose. He told them to fill the skies and to fill the seas. That's what happened. And God looked at his creation. Evening passed and morning came, and it had marked the 5th day. Now, we're going to go to day 6. Because you remember on day 3, God made the land, the plants, and he separated the water into seas. But now God began to fill the land. Then God said, let the earth produce every sort of animal, each producing offspring of the same kind, livestock, small animals that scurry along the ground, and wild animals. And that's what happened. God made all sorts of wild animals, livestock, and small animals, each able to produce offspring of the same kind. So now God filled the land, from the tiniest insects that you would know and recognize today, to creatures that are much bigger and have a much bigger presence. Even creatures that no living human being has ever seen and aren't around anymore. God created each of them, and he gave them a purpose. And God saw that it was good. But day 6 wasn't done yet. I bet you've been wondering what's behind this one over here. Well, to find out about that one, you're going to have to come back next week, because that's where we're going to stop. But we're going to find out what God made and said it was very good. But this is what God has made. God has set all of these things in motion, and he has created them for a purpose. You know what is amazing? God is a God of order. He is organized. I mean, think about this. We know that for plants to survive, they need to have air, they need to have sunlight, and they need to have water. What did God create before he created all of those things? Light, air, water. And he knew that the animals that he would create would need the vegetation that the land would produce. And so he created that before he created the animals. God is so thoughtful. But here's the thing. Sometimes you're going to hear this, especially as you go back to school. You're going to hear that the earth just came from nothing, that there was just two random things that collided and boom, now we have all of these things. But what I can see when you look at creation is it required a designer. And just like when I made my invention that was going to clean everybody's room for him, that was the purpose that I gave it. The designer, the creator, is the one who determines the purpose. So, if there's no creator, then there is no purpose. But if there is a creator, he's the one who determines what our purpose is. The Bible tells us that Jesus is our creator. He is the creator of the world and everything in it. If you were to read from the Bible in the book of Colossians, chapter 1, verse 16, it says this, talking about Jesus, for through him, that's Jesus, God created, help me out, church, what's that word? Everything. God created everything in the heavenly realms and on earth. That means everything on earth and everything in space. He made these things we can see and the things we can't see, such as thrones and kingdoms, and rulers and authorities in the unseen world. Everything that was created, or everything was created through him and for him. You see this line right here? For him, that is purpose. When God created you, he created you for him. In Revelation chapter 4, it describes what worship looks like in heaven. And this is what they call out. It says, you are worthy, O Lord our God, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and they exist because you created what you pleased. Listen, boys and girls, what that means is that if you're here today, it's because God was pleased to create you. He knit you together inside your mother's womb. He has a plan and a purpose for his creation. You have a purpose. God has a purpose for your life. Just as this verse from Revelation was an example of what worship in heaven looks like, you know what? That's what our response should be to God. Some people look at the world and say it just came from nothing. We're just a random accident that anything's even here. Some people look at the world and they worship the world and what the world has to offer. Yeah, let's save the trees. Let's make a lot of money. But what if we were the kind of people that when we looked at what God has made, we don't just worship the creation. We don't worship the creation. We worship the Creator. We look to God and say, God, you are amazing. You are powerful. You are beautiful.